according to Jewish law, they can't put someone to death by themselves. The only way that they could put somebody to death by themselves was by stoning. That was it. They couldn't crucify anybody. They couldn't, burn them in oil or whatever. They couldn't do that. So what did they have to do? They had to go to Rome and be like, do this for us. We can't do it. Isn't that strange? His own people wanted to kill him, but they weren't the ones that could do it. All they could do was speed the process along. All they could do was spread the lies. All they could do was make him out to be the worst human being on earth. And yet, even Pilate tried everything he could to get Jesus to defend himself. But he wouldn't. He just stood there, silent. Jesus' condemnation to death was decided by two words. I am. That was it. They asked him one question, and that one question, he could not lie. Are you the Son of God? I am. Now, why would Jesus lament over Jerusalem? Because Jerusalem was the cultural epicenter of Israel. That's where all the things were done. That's where all the trade, all the commerce and things were done. But most importantly, it's where Solomon's temple stood, which was the very symbol of the Jewish faith. And yet, they were the most sacrilegious people that you could think of. Because they didn't even listen to their prophets. Did they listen to their prophets in the Old Testament? Of course they did, to an extent. But then what happens? They turn around and they forget everything. They turn around and they go, oh, we don't need God. We can do this on our own. I mean, just think of how they acted when Moses went up to get the Ten Commandments. What did they do? They built a golden calf, which was a direct violation of one of the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not make any graven images. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is that Jesus had every right to condemn Israel. Because Israel is God's people. And Jesus was God in the flesh. So he had every right to sit there and go, you're wrong. You're in trouble. I want to go into the Old Testament for just a second to draw a comparison to what Jesus is doing versus a part of the Old Testament. Now, in the book of Daniel, we read the story of King Belshazzar. And what do we see? We see King Belshazzar see this writing appear on the wall of his palace. Mene, mene, tekel, perish. And he consults all these people, these scribes, these magicians, these mystics, all these people. And not one of them can figure out what it is that the writing on the wall is saying. But then he calls upon Daniel. And what does Daniel tell him that it means? You have been weighed against the scales of God and have been found wanting. In other words, God has measured you, and you do not measure up. So what Jesus is saying is Israel does not measure up. Now, does that mean that God is turning his back on Israel, that he's not going to consider them his chosen people anymore? No. But he's calling their attention to what they're doing. They didn't stop to think, oh, wait a minute, maybe we should listen to these people. No, they killed him. The last prophet that they killed, as far as I can tell, is Jesus. Because even though he was the Son of God, to them he would have been a prophet. Why? Because he's standing there and he's teaching them about God. He's telling them, okay, this is what's happening. Granted, he didn't say it in direct words, because he had to use parables, because or else nobody would have understood what he was saying. But the point is that Jerusalem killed their prophets. The people that God sent there for their benefit, they killed. Instead of learning from them, instead of preparing themselves for the coming of Jesus so that they would know beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is the one that we've been waiting for. And my question is this. If they knew who they were waiting for and they knew their scriptures, why is it that on Palm Sunday, here they are, putting palms down on the ground and putting their cloaks and having him ride in on a donkey, and then a week later, okay, you're dead? It makes no sense. But it just baffles me. How many people, maybe not getting physically killed, but how many people in today's society get pushed out of like the ministry or something like that because of something that they said, or because somebody didn't like what they had to say? You know, it's a parallel of where we are in modern times. Because what have we done? We've taken God out of school, court, Congress, everywhere. Even the home. A majority of marriages today, but not at all, how do they end? Divorce. Now, here's the problem. When God created the institution of marriage, he didn't create divorce. Man did that. Now, does the Old Testament give things concerning divorce? Yes. But it was never, ever encouraged as a first option. Ever. The point that I'm trying to make is this. Jesus is lamenting that Israel is killing their prophets. But what do we do today? Do we believe the word of God when we hear it, or do we sit here and go, he's just talking. Just let him go. He's nuts. I wonder how many prophets are being killed, whether physically or figuratively, in today's world. How many? And how many, not just here, but around the world, how many are willing to die for what they believe in? Here you don't find it much. But over in places like Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, all those places, these Christians meet in secret. Every day they meet, they have a price on their head. Why? Because the day could come at any time when somebody swoops in and is like, but yet they take the risk. That's what a prophet of God does. They go where the people don't want them. Which is why all the prophets went to Jerusalem. Because Jerusalem needed them the most. That's why Jesus went to Jerusalem. Because not only did Jerusalem need Jesus, we needed Jesus. And you know, there's one thing that I want to point out as I close. When Judas betrayed Jesus, he betrayed him in one of the worst possible ways, in my opinion. He kissed him. What significance does that have? In Jewish culture, whenever you meet each other, you always kiss each other on the cheek. But Judas, for him, it was the ultimate sign of disrespect. And not only that, he didn't just kiss Jesus, he literally went, "Hail, Rabbi," and then kissed him, and that was the signal for them to come and take him. He turned the one thing that was seen as a sign of respect and made it repugnant. So, the thing that we have to figure out is, how do we stop it? How do we, as people of God, stand up and say, enough is enough? Enough is enough. Now granted, we don't have prophets today like they did in the time of Jesus. But we have people that preach and that teach the Word of God, and then people sit there and go, well, they don't deserve to be here, or they shouldn't be here, or, things of that nature. But it's still there. Jesus lamented Israel, but I wonder how much more he would lament our country because of what's happened to it. I just wonder. Now the question is, do we stand idly by and let things continue to deteriorate? Or do we start standing up for God when no one else will? Think about that as you go throughout your week. Go in peace.